Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Building a Cloud Security Program on a Budget for FinTech Companies. I'm Rob from Revolgy, and I'm excited to be joined by my colleague Kadir, who will be walking us through a way to build a real, effective security program without spending a fortune, especially if you're building financial services as a startup or scale up. Here at Revolgy, we've been helping companies modernize and scale their cloud infrastructure by seamlessly helping them, whether it's cloud migrations, cost optimization, or advanced data analytics. And a subject that we'll be talking about in more details today is cloud security. I myself have over the 10 years experience, whether it be endpoints, attack surface management, or penetration testing security to boot as well. So we'll get underway with the webinar now. And just a quick heads up before we begin, this session is being recorded. We'll make the full video available on our website after the webinar, so no need to scribble too much. Feel free to ask questions in the chat at any time, and we'll get to those as we move through the webinar. And now I will hand over to my esteemed colleague Kadir, who will take us away.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, and I'm Kadir. So I'm leading the cloud security business unit here at Revolgy. And as Rob mentioned, we do all sorts of things for cloud security, from external security assessments to compliance checks to help you Windows audits as well. Let's perhaps get started with the webinar. First of all, I would like to mention that you can get a free attack surface assessment by filling the form, by scanning this QR code. You'll get to a form. It is optional. If you are interested, you can just say yes, or just reach out to us, and just let us know that we'll run the audit for you in 1 or 2 days and give you a very detailed report with all the remediation steps. So please feel free to take advantage of this. And afterwards, we also offer a free consultation hour to go over the findings with you and your team to help them mitigate the issues that we found. So this webinar is called Building a Security Program on a Budget for FinTech. So as we all know, FinTech companies are very heavily under scrutiny by compliance frameworks. So we will try to give you very actionable steps and ideas about how you can start building out your security program from the get-go. A little bit about the agenda. So I'll go through the format very quickly, what it will look like for us today. And then we'll talk about laying the foundations, talk about strategy and governance, and then we will go through establishing a secure cloud architecture, and then move on to a very important part of all security programs: protecting data, especially customer data, whether it be PII, financial data, or transactional. And then finally, we'll talk about some compliance frameworks and how you can ace those audits with your company. About the format, so each section will be divided into 2 or 3 subsections, and each subsection will contain crawl, walk, run phases. And for those of you who don't know, this is a methodology, a framework in security that refers to a phased approach for building and maturing a security program. Right. So in the crawl stage, you start with the basics. In the walk stage, you implement security best practices. And then in the run stage, you mature into a more advanced capability. And then basically in each of these phases, we will have 2 or 3 action points for you to start building out your security program. And after the crawl, walk, run phases, we will give you 1 or 2 tips about how to save on costs regarding each section. And at the end of each section, we will have few sentences of key takeaways, so you can that will stick with you, hopefully, towards your journey of building the security program. So let's get started. Laying the foundation, strategy, and governance. So security doesn't start with firewalls or scanning tools, right? It starts with clarity. And early stage fintech companies often skip these steps, these formal security responsibilities, because everyone wears all the hats, right? But laying the foundation means answering who owns what and where are we vulnerable right now. So this section will hopefully help you put in place two lightweight but critical practices, one of which is defining who drives security efforts and then understanding where your risks lie. And you don't need a security team or expensive compliance tools to do that, right? So regarding security roles and responsibilities, at the crawl stage, just find someone within the team that is well versed in security, or someone who has done some security work in the past, or perhaps trained in security, and assign them something that we call security champion responsibilities, right? A security champion means that they are responsible for security and they're liable for it. So he will be your go-to security guy. And you can use ISO 27001 Control 5.2 as a reference, but please keep it simple. There's no need to complicate it at this stage. And then just list responsibilities in a team handbook or a Notion workspace or whatever you are using. Even a Google Doc would do at this stage. And then in the walk stage, so we start formalizing the roles in an actual RACI metrics, right? So responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And then you should start reviewing the access rights regularly. So if you're using something like an identity management tool like Okta or something else, it's great. You can do that very easily. There are ways to do that. And then last but not least, you should. And I see many companies skipping this part. So you should rotate ownership for code reviews and or tooling, right? So what it means is that you should. So if someone is reviewing the code constantly, they might be blindsided by what they already know, right? So putting someone new in place would help a lot. And in the run stage, in the more mature state, you can appoint a dedicated security person, a security owner, and then review your org chart as needed. So and basically to cover the areas that you are most interested in, such as cloud security, application security, or risk management, etc. And finally, if you don't have the budget for a full-time CISO, you can consider engaging a virtual CISO, right? A virtual CISO means that they will work with you and your security program as needed to refine it, and they will help you run the audits, etc. And the cost-saving tip. So there is no need to adopt a GRC tool at the beginning. So you can avoid it. If you're at the crawl stage, what we listed just right now is enough, and there's no need to complicate things. And if you're contracting a part-time CISO, start with a fixed scope engagement for 2.5 hours a month. So very, very simple, simple beginnings, baby steps, so to speak. And then we move on to risks, right? So you need to be able to identify and manage your risks, whether it be application, infrastructure, or business risks, for example. And you can start doing that by brainstorming the risks as a team, first of all. So sit down with your developers, your DevOps engineers, your CEO, CTO. If you're a small company, you can easily do that. And then start brainstorming the risks to the business, right? And you should, by that time, you should already be filling out a 10, 20 row risk register in Google Sheets or similar. So don't need to complicate it again. And this will help you basically be successful in audits as well. So if you're under compliance pressure, auditors love stuff like that. So it's I think it will help a lot in your audits if you're running them. And finally, include both technical and business risks, like I mentioned, such as theft, outages, and missed alerts, etc. In the run stage, we already should start reviewing the risks quarterly or as systems change. So if you add something new to your arsenal, you should review the risks pertaining to that, and then add a column for mitigation confidence, right? So it's how confident are you in being able to mitigate that risk? And if you are comfortable, if you can do it, right away. If you can do it in a day or two, just do it. There's no need to wait for that risk to realize, right? And then finally, use visuals like threat modeling diagrams. So threat modeling will help you get there. Will help you understand what threats you are facing, and use that to communicate key risks to your leadership or to your investors during due diligence steps. And in the run stage, so we integrate risks into compliance efforts like SOC 2 or ISO 27001, and we use platforms like Drata or Vanta if there's budget for it. They are helpful in that sense. Not probably in the crawl and walk stages, but in the run stage, if you are mature enough, they will help you immensely especially in audits. And then delegate the mitigation efforts to respective teams, right? So by this time, you must already have some teams that are working on separate things. Let's say like your development team, your front-end development, back-end development, etc. So wherever the risks lie, just assign it to the respective teams and track the completion of mitigation activities. Cost-saving tip. So do not pay for risk management software unless your audit requires it. So unless you are under very strong pressure from your auditors about using software to manage risk, and if unless there's a very clear need for it, you don't have to pay for it. You can just do it like we just discussed. At the crawl stage, especially, you can just use Google Sheets for a risk register. There's no shame in that. And then free open source tools like OWASP Threat Dragon, which is a threat modeling tool that you can check out, or a pre-built Sheets template would work well until you reach scale. So takeaways from the first section, right? So assign someone, even if it's part-time, to security, and this can be a security champion. That's someone you can hold liable for security, for risk management, etc. Create a one-page risk register with priorities. So what do you want to resolve first? What do you want to mitigate first? This is also very important. What poses the biggest risk to your business? So even a one-page risk register would help in identifying and seeing that. And don't overdo tooling. This is going to be a common theme in the whole webinar. So there is no need to buy a lot of tooling that will create noise, that will confuse you, that won't help you to mature your security program. So start simple, and start with people and visibility, right? So this is also very, very important. Okay, so I'm not sure if there are any questions up to this point, Rob?
Yeah, I believe we've got a couple of questions, but that's a great start. And we've discussed a few times, Kadir, strategy and whether you're a startup just taking your first steps in cloud security to an enterprise customer. We see so many times people, exactly. The analogy we use, right? People buy the umbrella after it starts raining. So I think strategy is extremely key. But we do have some questions already. So question one, we don't have a dedicated security person yet. Who should own this in, say, a 10-person or less startup?
Okay. So at that stage, if you're a 10-person startup, right, there's no need to build a security team yet, right? So security ownership should usually sit with someone who's technical, someone close to infrastructure or engineering decisions, right? So someone who's like at a higher level. And this would usually be a tech lead or a CTO level, right? And even if it's not their full-time job, like I said, it can be part-time, it can be a day a week, right? Someone needs to be clearly responsible for tracking these risks, reviewing the permissions of people, of employees, and coordinating incident response, because you never know when an incident will hit, so you need to be ready for it. And someone needs to coordinate those efforts. And you can also make this a shared responsibility if you want. So it, but I would suggest assigning one main point of contact.
Interesting. It alludes to sort of the last points of the first section, right? Of doesn't have to be someone full time. It could just show an interest and have some form of strategy to these areas.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Definitely.
That's a great first question. Do we have any more from the audience, or shall we move forward? All right, I think that's got us off. We can move forward to Kadir.
All right. So establishing a secure cloud infrastructure. So this is a very important step, right? And we'll walk through, I guess, I'm guessing 3 subsections in this one, and this is a very fundamental step in establishing your security program. So if you were to take anything away from this, I would say this section is that, right? And why is this important, right? So because your infrastructure is where everything else in your platform lives, right? So customer data, financial logic, business logic, authentication systems, admin panels, what have you. And over permissive cloud access or misconfigured services are leading causes of breaches, data breaches, right? But the good news is that every major cloud provider, like Google Cloud Platform or Amazon Web Services, they offer free or low-cost tools to secure the basics for you. So this is very important to configure it well. And you don't need dozens of security engineers or a full-blown compliance platform to lock down your cloud environment. So you just need to focus on a few fundamentals and build from there, right? So secure cloud configuration, where to start? So the crawl steps are, very simple. Just disable root users and admin accounts. They should only be used in emergencies, in break glass situations, and enable MFA on all console logins. So it's very important, and people skip this because it's an inconvenience at times, right? But it is very important to have this available, especially if you're a fintech, right? Because you don't want your whole infrastructure to be compromised because someone's account got leaked in dark web or something like that. And lock down public access. So this is very simple to do. No open to the world buckets, and most of the cloud providers are already doing this by default. So you don't even have to do anything. And just try not misconfiguring it. And then review permissions manually during onboarding, right? So let's say if you're onboarding a new person, just review their permissions. If they have any excessive permissions, just take them away. There's no need to risk anything. In the walk stage, so you should already have a decent amount of infrastructure running, and I would suggest using some form of infrastructure as code, and if possible, use secure by default infrastructure as code modules. They are available, on GitHub, for example, for Terraform. And then run compliance checks locally with tools like TFSec, which stands for Terraform Security, or Checkov, right? And then begin enabling basic security services like AWS GuardDuty or GCP Security Command Center. You can already do this, by the way, at a crawl stage. I'm just saying this right now because I'm assuming that you already had the basics covered. And these are both of them offer free tiers and are immensely useful, right? And then at the run stage, so you can already start thinking about a CSPM solution like Prowler or Wiz, and to get like a holistic view of all your cloud infrastructure. And then you should start automating your alerts and remediation workflows for misconfigurations. And finally, include security requirements in your CI/CD pipelines, especially if you're deploying new stuff into your cloud, new workloads into your cloud. Cost saving tip. So my suggestion is to skip top tier tools at the beginning, especially at the crawl stage. You don't need them just yet. You can get a preview of them to see what they are capable of, what they are doing. But cloud native features like AWS config, GCP Security Command Center, AWS Guard Duty, and open source scanners like Scout Suite or Prowler can detect already critical misconfigurations without needing a subscription. Identity and access management. So this is a very important feature of the cloud service providers, right? And at the crawl stage, so you shouldn't. I mean, this should be common sense, but no sharing of IAM users or root accounts. And you should require MFA for all user logins and assign permissions via roles or groups, not individuals, because individuals leave, or they might the individual permissions might be forgotten, not kept track of very, very nicely. So it poses a risk to your cloud environment. At the walk stage, you should already start thinking about using short-lived credentials for programmatic access, for example, SDS in AWS. And you should audit IAM usage and rotate credentials every 6 to 12 months. So this, auditing the IAM usage might sound scary, but there are cloud-native tools for that you can use. And you should start building standard IAM policies in Terraform, or if you're using AWS, you can use CloudFormation for that as well. So this is and there already exists quite a few of those available as open source. And at the run stage, you should start monitoring the IAM activity with anomaly detection, right? So there is on AWS, there is IAM Access Analyzer that you can use. This is a cloud-native tool. And then you should on GCP, there's the IAM Recommender. So these are both great, very nicely thought out tools that you can use. And then automatically review and expire unused service accounts, right? This is a common cause of breaches. You just, I don't know, some developer pushes a service account credentials to version control systems, and then somebody stumbles upon it, and then it becomes a whole incident in and of itself. And finally, you can think about implementing just-in-time access control for sensitive systems, right? So these are like short-lived credentials that you give out to services or people just to do their job, and then they just expire by themselves. Cost-saving tip. So I would suggest avoiding investing in complex identity platforms too early, because there are cloud-native tools that you can use, and my suggestion is to stick with them. And you can use free IAM review tools from your provider and document a few high-privilege accounts that you should always be keeping track of manually if needed. Encryption, keys, and logging essentials. So this is another important part, right? And at the crawl stage, this is already done by default by the major cloud providers, but you should always check if the encryption at rest and in transit is enabled. And use cloud managed keys out of the box. So there's AWS KMS and Google Cloud KMS. So these both provide out of the box keys for you, encryption keys, and they are strong. There's no issue with them. And Google and AWS, they are responsible for the security of them. So you can rest assured that they are secure. And then finally, you should turn on audit logs and storage logs if possible. If you're storing a lot of sensitive data, storage logs are very important. This include S3 access logs and GCS object logs. And in the walk stage, so you should begin organizing your logs centrally, right? Just use maybe an S3 bucket, or in Google a Google Cloud storage bucket to centralize them, and then identify which logs you want to send to a lightweight CM, or just archived storage, so that you can if there's an incident or if there's an issue with your systems, that you can always go back and take a look at the logs. And then finally, manage access to encryption keys. So you should use roles for that, and do periodic key rotation as well. And ideally, these should be written down, as a policy, for example. And in the run stage, so you can use customer managed or customer supplied keys for sensitive workloads. You can already, you will have the ability to use your own keys to manage them by yourself, so you don't have to rely on Google or AWS for that. And then integrate your logging with alerting, right? So configure alerts for example, configure alerts for failed login attempts, bucket changes, etc. There are many great open source repositories for detection rules that you can use, right? So I would suggest checking them out. And then finally implement key use monitoring, and you can automate the rotation of the keys as well. Cost saving tip. So use what your provider gives you for free. Like I said, many major cloud providers, they give you these features for free. Just use them. There's no need to complicate it. For example, AWS S3 and EBS encryption, GCP default encryption, the logging tiers that they give you, and platform native KMS. So AWS KMS, Google Cloud KMS are more than enough for early stage fintechs. So please use them. And if you don't have SCM, just SCM is like a centralized log management and alerting tool that we use in security. Just export your logs to a storage and set the alerts directly in your cloud console. So this concludes this section. The main key takeaways that I would like to give you is that secure cloud architecture starts with clarity and hygiene, right? And this is not about washing your hands, but this is about security hygiene. And it has nothing to do with expensive tooling, especially at crawl and walk stages. And IAM missteps. So if you misconfigure IAM, they can expose your entire infrastructure. So that is very, very important to keep track of it. If nothing else, then use the cloud native tools like IAM Access Analyzer to keep track of it, and enforce basics like MFA and least privilege early on, so you don't have to retrofit anything. And I know that encryption and logging, they feel invisible, but they are very critical during incidents or audits. Try to enable them from day one, and don't wait until a compliance audit, right? The crawl stage, the crawl phase steps prevent issues without draining your budget. All right. Any questions?
Yeah, great job. We have a couple of questions already, Kadir. So we're fully on GCP. What built-in tools should we enable right away for security?
I would suggest starting with audit logs, definitely, cloud audit logs. So please enable them. And then security command center, definitely. Because, I mean, like I said, it's the standard version is for free, right? So you like literally have nothing to lose by enabling it. And it gives you a lot, right? So it identifies misconfigurations across, if you enable it at organization level, it will give you findings from all of your folders, all of your projects. So I would suggest enabling it as soon as possible. And use IAM recommender for cleaning up overly broad permissions. And yeah, just make sure that default encryption is on for storage buckets and databases if you are using any. They usually are, but it's worth checking. Any other question?
Yes, we do have one more question that's come in as well. So should we start with Terraform or manage our cloud configuration manually at this stage?
Yeah, okay. I'm assuming it's like an early stage fintech. I mean, unless if you're running just MVPs, right? So just to check if something is working out, in the cloud, then there probably is not a need to Terraform that, right? But if you have production workloads, if you are using the cloud, if you're using the cloud as your primary infrastructure, I would suggest using Terraform or some other form of IAC, right? Infrastructure as code. So that would be the way to go, right? Because it gives you like consistent, auditable control over your infrastructure, and it helps reduce the mistakes that happen through the console. And for example, you can enable something that will cost you, I don't know, that will cost you $1,000 for a month, right? And you would have no idea what it is until you can check the cost console, but if you're not being careful, there are incidents that happen that way, right? So I would suggest using it if you have production workloads.
Okay, great, interesting. Yeah, and I really like this sort of crawl, walk, run as well, because I think naturally wherever you are on your cloud security sort of journey or path, your initial reaction is, right, how quickly can we run? But having these sort of tools where you can implement strategy and sort of have sort of guidance from early stage as well is really key. So brilliant,
definitely.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
and I don't know if I mentioned already, but we will turn this into an ebook, right? And we will there will be a checklist of what you can do at each stage. So stay tuned for that. I don't want to give a date because I don't want my marketing team to bash me, but stay tuned for that on the Revolgy LinkedIn page or check your inbox regularly. Cool. Are there any other questions? Can we move forward?
We can move forward. Yeah, those are the two questions just then.
Okay, perfect. So this is protecting customer data, right? So as fintech companies, you deal with a lot of data, financial data, PII, transactional data, and all of those are considered sensitive data, right? And not protecting that means you will lose customer trust. You will get fined by because of non-compliance with certain frameworks. And in fintechs, right, the data you handle, the user identities, transaction records, like I said, are your crown jewels, right? A single exposure of sensitive data can lead to financial loss for you and basically irreversible brand damage, right? So data protection doesn't have to start with expensive tooling. Again, it starts with knowing what data you collect, where it lives, and how it's being accessed. So if you sort of master these basics early, and then you'll be far ahead of like many other companies that are 3 times your size, right? And I'm speaking from experience. Cool. So data classification and sensitivity mapping, right? So this is a very important step because you can't protect what you don't know, right? If you don't know how sensitive the data is, you won't be able to, you won't apply the correct practices to it to protect it. So at the crawl stage, you should start by identifying key types of sensitive data, right? That you have on your users, on your employees, etc. And this includes like name, email, account numbers, transactions, what have you. And then log where that data is stored, right? Is it? I mean, by logging, I mean, in a simple, even a simple Google sheet would work here. Whether it be databases, cloud storage, or within your application logs, for example. You shouldn't have them logged, but if there is a case, then it should be written down. And then tag systems and services that handle sensitive data, right? So just say that, okay, this system handles PII, this system handles transactional data, just so people are aware that when dealing with that system, they need to be careful. They need to take into consideration the best practices. And then at the walk stage, you can start creating 2 or 3 classification levels, right? So whether it's public, internal, or restricted for your documents that you have, and then create a simple data flow diagram for the backend systems. So if you're processing payments, for example, how the data is flowing from, let's say, from your front end to your microservices, right? Which microservices does it go through, etc. And then tag sensitive data in infrastructure as well. So if you can use GCP labels, AWS tags, just for visibility, just so like I said, people are aware that this is an important component that I should be careful with. And at the run stage, so you can start building policies around data handling and retention. This is especially important for audit reasons, right? How long you retain the data, for what purpose, etc. And then you can start using automated data discovery tools, right? So there's DLP APIs that you can use, or there are also open source scanners. You can find them easily if you search for DLP in GitHub. There are many great tools to do that. And then you should train your staff on classification policies and proper data handling. So if someone creates a document that includes, I don't know, employee or the customer names and emails, they should tag it accordingly, and they should classify it so that other people are aware. Cost saving tip. So you should use just basic spreadsheets at the beginning, right? Or Notion if you're using that to track the sensitivity levels per system. So there's no need for full-blown data discovery suites early on, and that you should just focus on the few databases, buckets, or environments that that matter to you the most, right? Encryption at rest, in transit, and simple DLP controls. So DLP stands for data loss prevention, right? It's a very important component of a security program, especially if you're dealing with ISO 27001. I guess in the newest version there's a clause now that says that you need to be doing something to prevent data loss, and data loss prevention systems are just that, right? But at the crawl stage, right? So we talked about this earlier as well, but it's important. And I will repeat it again. So just ensure that encryption at rest is enabled in all major services. And they should be by default, unless you misconfigured it, right? It doesn't hurt to check. And you should serve all your traffic over HTTPS TLS 1.2 plus, unless there's a very, very important reason not to. Please do that. And then avoid storing customer PII in logs, whether it be name, email, just this is very bad practice to log customer data, because logs, you often don't know where they end up, and they might get in the wrong hands, and someone might use that against you. At the vault stage, you should start using centralized key management. We talked about this as well. So KMS. Either on AWS or GCP or Azure. I'm sure there is, there are free cloud native tooling to do this, to control encryption keys. So begin encrypting sensitive data fields at the application layer, right? So nothing should be readable, right? And block or redact PII in logs using filters or SDK-based log masking. In the run stage, you can already start using DLP APIs. So GCP has a DLP solution, DLP API, an advanced one. AWS has Macy for S3 buckets. So this will help you detect data in motion and in storage, right? And then you should rotate or expire keys regularly and use IAM policies to restrict who can decrypt the data. And finally, enforce TLS only internal communication between services, right? So if your application is running on microservices, you should already start thinking about enforcing TLS only in case one of the microservices gets compromised. The data wouldn't be readable. Cost saving tip. So start with built-in encryption tools from your cloud provider. We talked about this already. There are many great tools, many great functionality that the cloud service providers already give you for free. This includes AWS KMS, CMAC, which is customer managed encryption keys, and Azure Key Vault. And simple log filters and S3 lifecycle rules can prevent accidental exposure initially. So if you are at the crawl or walk stage, please take note and try to apply those to your sensitive data containing databases or buckets. And finally, the third subsection, managing access to production data. Right, this is a hard one because especially if you're an early stage fintech, right, because your developers need access to production data. But at the crawl stage, you should know who has access to prod databases and logs. Just list them out in a Google Sheet, in Notion, doesn't matter where. You don't need tooling for this, right? And then avoid using shared credentials or console access. Turn off all direct read and write access for non-essential team members. Why, the principle of least privilege, right? So just apply that to your production data as well, and try to keep track of it. At the walk stage, you should introduce approval workflows for accessing prod. So let's say you're using Jira, someone should create a ticket, and explain the reasoning behind why they need access. And you should consider using Bastion hosts with logging or session recording, so that you know that data is not being misused. And then provide read-only replicas for troubleshooting and debugging with limited data sets, right? So if there's a need for troubleshooting something, or your developer is debugging a feature that they wrote, you should be able to easily create a replica with limited data sets for that. At the run stage, so we talked about just-in-time access before. You should consider implementing that with tools like AWS SSM Session Manager, or HashiCorp Boundary is another one. And then monitor and alert on access to sensitive data systems in real time. Tokenize or anonymize sensitive data when used in lower environments such as Q&A or dev environments. I see it time and time again that that production data is just replicated to a Q&A and dev environments or staging environments, and this is bad practice. And if an auditor sees this, for example, they will not be very happy. So cost-saving tip: use built-in access controls. This mainly consists of IAM and audit logging, rather than buying into privileged access management tools. And add alerts or emails when specific databases or buckets are being accessed in production, right? So that that who accessed it, what are they using it for, etc. So if you can, limited VPN access or a jump box setups, they go a long way, right? So they will help you secure the production data that you have. So takeaways from this section is start with basic classification, like we talked about, restricted, internal, private, and a clear list of what data you collect and where it's being stored. So this is very important, because as you grow, you start storing more data, and then you don't know where that data is. And if someone asks you, let's say they exercise their GDPR right in asking you that I don't want my data to be stored anymore, you won't be able to provide that to them, right? And then you'll be in trouble with a GDPR control. Encryption is mostly free and default, right? But please make sure that they are enabled, nothing is misconfigured. And then managing access to production data is as much about policy and people as it is about tooling. So train your people in that. Start with secure storage, HTTPS, and log controls. Yeah. Any questions on this, Rob? I'm not sure.
Just check. I've got two questions come through, but once again, interesting points on that. And I think also it's quite interesting to see how many sort of tools are available for people to use straight away, whether that's leaning on your cloud provider or partner, so whether your cloud, Google Cloud, Workspace, or AWS. as well as free tools. Like you said, there's so many out there that work with encryption as well. So interesting topics again, mate. Two questions here. First one,
Yep.
we're not storing credit card numbers. Do we still need to
Mhm.
worry about encryption?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's not just about credit card information, right? You might be storing names and email addresses of people, for example. Not like non-payment data, right? So they need to be protected. And like I said, it's usually enabled by default in the cloud. So just make sure, if you're storing any data, any sort of sensitive data. So we call it personally identifiable information, right? So if you can pin that data on someone or to a group, right? So that will be considered PII. So if you have any type of data like that, just make sure that encryption is enabled, both at rest and in transit. So just make sure that they are protected as they should be. And it takes a very small effort to verify, right? So just
Yeah, I think an instance like this, it's like adding the everyday life aspect as well. It's like, we'll look at your iPhone, look at your banking apps. It usually takes a couple
oh yeah.
steps to get there. And it's so easy, so quick. And these things are so easy, again, to add for businesses, but add so much value. So that's a great point regarding the encryption side.
Yeah.
And we have one more question. How
Nice.
do we track customer data when it's stored across services?
Yeah, okay. So like microservices or whatever. I would start with a simple data inventory. So this basically is a collection of what data you collect, where it is stored, and who can access it. We talked about it earlier. And it doesn't have to be fancy, right? So just something accurate that that you have access to, and that you can what is being stored, what data you are processing, and if a flash audit comes along, you would be able to show to the auditors as well that, okay, we are keeping track of what data we are storing and where, and we have access to the data. It's not and it is secure, right? So a simple data inventory should help.
Okay, makes sense. I don't believe we'll give it another second. There's looks like there's no more questions, so we can carry on to the next section, Kadir. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. So they are already running out of time quickly. I will try to make this quick, right? So compliance-led thinking. Compliance should be more than just checking boxes for you, right? So for especially fintech startups, having the right security and privacy foundations, which is another important aspect, helps you build trust with partners and with your customers, right? And it accelerates, procurement procedures, and then they also reduce legal and regulatory risks that you might face, and they also help you prepare for scaling, right? So this is it's very important. I mean, many compliance frameworks, they overlap in controls and expectations, right? I don't know, like, DORA is coming up soon, and it has some overlap with ISO 27001, etc. But not all of them. What I'm trying to say is that not all of them are relevant from day one for you. But the sooner you understand what rules apply to you and to your company and to your product, right, the easier it becomes to prepare for audits and answer those security questionnaires. And then this in turn helps you avoid expensive surprises, right? Like fines and non-compliance, etc. So for EU-based or EU-serving fintechs, right, a new regulation is coming up, which I just mentioned. It's called DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So relevant frameworks. So I mentioned that you should be, the earlier you know what frameworks are relevant for you, the better for you, right? So at the crawl stage, you should start by identifying which compliance frameworks might apply to your company, right? Get legal help if you need it. So GDPR if you handle EU data, PCI DSS if you process card payments, and if if you're using like something like Stripe, for example, to process payments, then it doesn't really apply to you. And SOC 2 if you are like a business-to-business SaaS tool, right? And you should start documenting what security practices you already follow, even if that's informal, even if there's no like policy written down. So you should start writing them down so that it's easier for you to keep track later at a later stage. In the work stage, to map your current practices to standard controls, whether it be ISO 27001 or SOC 2, and then this can be in a spreadsheet. Again, no need to complicate it, no need to buy into a GRC tool. And then begin preparing control narratives, evidence logs, and policies, right? And especially for DORA, so you should start tracking your, basically the third-party service providers that are critical to your business, your cloud dependencies and incident handling steps. So this is very important in terms of preparing for a DORA audit. And at the run stage, run phase, you should pursue third-party audits where needed. SOC 2 type 1 or 2 is a very common one. This is a commonly asked framework especially from startups. PCI DSS certification, comes at a later stage, but still can be relevant if you're processing card payments. And then build a compliance roadmap into your product and operational planning, right? So this is very important. It will help you get those audits done in time without chaos. And then finally, you should assign internal leads or work with a virtual CISO again, or a compliance advisor, like a legal advisor that is specialized in whatever framework you are trying to be compliant with. This will help you prepare for audits. A quick word about DORA, right? We've been mentioning it a couple of times. I just wanted to take a minute or two on this. So DORA applies nearly all financial entities in the EU, and it came into effect early 2025. The local regulations still need to catch up, but it is already being implemented, right? So the catch is that even non-regulated fintech firms may become indirectly impacted by this. And the key controls in DORA focus on operational resilience, right? Like incident handling, etc. And you should begin your process by identifying information and communication technology third parties, and determine how incidents will be reported if they affect operations or customers, right? If you need more information on this, we might host another webinar on this, or just reach out to us, and we'll happily assist you if you think you are being affected by DORA. Cost saving tip. So you don't need a compliance platform initially. We mentioned this before a few times. It's you can just use lightweight mapping tools like spreadsheets or Notion pages to mirror ISO or SOC 2 control sets. And then there are many free guides available and templates. They're often as helpful as paid toolkits in the early stages. Preparing for audits at the crawl stage. Just whatever you're doing, just store screenshots of those. Start creating policy docs, policy documentation, and then technical settings for easy access. Right? Let's say in a Google in a Drive folder, for example, in a Google Drive folder, right? And then you should create a simple internal checklist, document your incident response plan, and vendor review process if possible. So these are very easy. You can find templates online, and it will help you immensely, in both internal and external audits. At the work stage, you should assign a point of contact responsible for each domain, access control, application security, cloud configuration. These can be people, whose jobs are not full-time security. for example, for cloud config, it can be a DevOps engineer, and for app security, it can be a tech lead or a developer or a senior developer, etc. And then schedule an internal control review every quarter, if possible. Every half a year is also fine, but still, it will help you review where you are and how you are progressing. And finally, track gaps or incomplete items and assign owners to those. Those owners have to be relevant, obviously, and the completion, the mitigation progress should be kept track of. And in the run stage, prepare for third-party audits with evidence folders. Like I said, it can be a Google Drive folder. There is no need to complicate it. And control narratives. Use audit preparation services or fractional compliance teams to validate documents and processes. And finally, conduct full internal audits annually, ideally before your external audit, and formal and also do formal readiness assessments as needed. And for our final cost-saving tip, so like I mentioned, a well-organized Google Drive or any type of cloud folder, it often replaces the need for pricey compliance software, especially at crawl and walk stages. And assign a single point of contact to oversee the evidence collection, like I said, screenshots, policy docs, etc. And keep thorough internal notes so you can later transition to an audit platform if needed, if you are at that scale. Takeaways: so know which framework to apply to your fintech company, and start preparing early for those with the crawl stage action points. DORA affects many EU-based or EU-facing firms by 2025. Internal audits will help you prepare long before an external assessment is necessary. So, even if you don't need external assessment right away, you can start with internal assessments so that you are ready for whenever an external assessment comes along. And document everything, organize your evidence, and build a sustainable process. And with that, I think we move on to the Q&A section. We have about 3 minutes, I believe. So sorry, I went a bit over time, but hopefully this was useful. Rob?
It's all good content. Really interesting to hear. I believe we have 2 questions.
Okay.
So the first one, we keep hearing about DORA. How do we know if we're affected, and what should we start doing?
Yeah, this is a good question, and we get that a lot. So if you're an EU-based fintech, right, and you provide like financial services or infrastructure, DORA will likely apply to you directly or indirectly. And even if you are not regulated yet, right, so your partners might be, and they'll expect you to be operationally resilient as well. So it affects you indirectly in this sense. So and what should we start doing? So you should start by identifying the critical, like I said, the third-party vendors that are critical to your business, and then document your incident response plan and track significant incidents internally. Right. So these would be the steps that I would give. If you don't know, like I said, it's probably best to check with someone that that is a specialist to understand whether you would be affected or not.
Interesting. And one final one, interesting question again to round off. We're not ready to pursue SOC 2 yet, but our partners keep asking about it. How should we respond?
Yeah, this is a very common ask, right? Especially if you're like a SaaS company, that they want to purchase your service, but they don't know your security practices. So this is a very common question. Just be transparent. I mean, you can say that you are working towards it, towards being ready for it, and you can share what you already have in place. It can be your security policies, whatever access controls you have, your risk assessments if you have done any, and some incident response plan that you have. So just be transparent with potential customers. And you can create sort of a short trust document as well, that will outline your current security posture. I think that would go a long way. I mean, if I'm thinking as a customer, right, it would go a long way to build that confidence, before you are ready for an audit.
Brilliant. And that was a great response to actually our last question of the session, Kadir. So thank you so much.
Nice.
I definitely think you've given some strong ideas and tips for building out that strategy.
Yeah.
So thank you again, mate, for that. And thank you again to our audience for joining today. We've covered a lot. We hope this makes security feel more manageable, even for small teams just getting started. And just a quick reminder, our external security assessment is 100% free. It's unauthenticated, quick, and quite useful. So all you need to do is say yes, and we can get that across to you. We have a questionnaire to help us focus better on areas of concern. And if you want to talk more through your setup, feel free to book a complimentary consultation with us. We're always happy to help teams build secure foundations the practical way. And just once again, we will release an ebook. Please follow our LinkedIn page, set the notifications. Everything will be released through there, and the quickest way to find that and anything else. And yes, once again, thank you, Kadir. Thank you to everyone that tuned in today. And we look forward to talking more security with you in the future. Thank you very much, and have a great day all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.